The neon signs cast harsh shadows across Riker Blackwood's weathered face as he made his way through New Haven's lower districts. The former commander's cybernetic eye whirred softly, scanning the crowd for potential threats, an old habit he couldn't shake even after 5 years of self-imposed exile. The rusty anchor was exactly the kind of dive bar where a man could disappear. Riker had become quite good at disappearing since the Centauri incident. He settled onto his usual stool, nodding to the bartender who already had his drink ready. "The usual night, Commander," the bartender asked, sliding the glass of synthetic whiskey across the scarred counter. "Not a commander anymore, Dex. Just another ghost." Riker took a long sip, letting the artificial burn wash away memories of plasma fire and screaming soldiers. The bar's atmosphere shifted suddenly as the door swung open, admitting a gust of rain-laden air and a figure that made Riker's cybernetic eyes zoom in automatically. Her skin was a deep indigo, marked with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with her rapid breathing. She clutched a small bundle to her chest, her silver eyes darting around the room with barely contained panic. Illyrian. Riker hadn't seen one of their kind since the peace treaties were signed. They usually stuck to their own systems, far from human-controlled space. The alien woman's gaze locked onto him, and Riker felt an uncomfortable prickle at the base of his skull. She approached his table with deliberate steps, her movements graceful despite her obvious exhaustion. "You," she said, her voice carrying the distinctive melodic undertones of her species. "You bear the mark of a warrior." Her eyes flicked to the military-grade cybernetics visible on his temple. "Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying," Riker growled, turning back to his drink. "I seek protection, not commerce." She shifted the bundle in her arms, revealing the face of a sleeping child. Its skin was lighter than its mother's, with faint markings that seemed to shimmer in the bar's dim light. "My name is Naira, and this is my son, Soren. We are being hunted." Riker's organic eye narrowed. "There are plenty of security firms in New Haven." "Why me?" "Because you are different," Naira replied, sliding into the seat opposite him. "I can sense it. You understand what it means to lose everything, to be haunted by choices made in war." The cybernetic implant itched as old memories threatened to surface. "Lady, you don't know anything about me. I know you were there during the Centauri incident. I know you made a choice that saved thousands but still haunts you. And I know you are our only hope." Riker's hand tightened around his glass. "How do you?" A crash from outside cut him off. Naira's head snapped toward the sound, her markings flaring with fear. The bundle in her arms stirred, and Riker caught a glimpse of eyes that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. "They found us," Naira whispered, pulling Soren closer. Riker's combat systems activated automatically, highlighting multiple armed figures approaching the bar. His mind raced through tactical scenarios, old instincts warring with his desire to stay uninvolved. "Please," Naira's voice cracked. "My son is special. If they capture him, they will use him to reignite the war. I cannot let that happen." The door burst open, revealing 3 figures in sleek combat armor. Their weapons were military-grade, definitely not local security. Riker made his decision before his conscious mind could object. "Back exit," he muttered, rising smoothly. "On my mark." Naira nodded, her relief palpable. Riker downed his drink and caught Dex's eye. The bartender nodded slightly, reaching under the counter. The armed figures moved into the bar, scanning methodically. Riker counted under his breath, timing it perfectly with Dex dropping a glass. In the split second of distraction, he moved. His cybernetic systems kicked into overdrive as he vaulted the bar, drawing the compact pulse pistol from his ankle holster. 2 precise shots dropped the nearest attackers before they could react. The third managed to raise their weapon, but Dex's shotgun roared, sending them sprawling. "Go!" Riker shouted, laying down covering fire as Naira ran for the back door. More figures were visible in the street outside. This wasn't a simple pursuit team, this was a full tactical unit. As they emerged into the rain-slicked alley, Riker's tactical systems mapped the fastest route to his safe house. "Stay close," he ordered, guiding them through the maze of New Haven's lower levels. Naira kept pace surprisingly well, never loosening her grip on Soren. The child remained eerily quiet, those strange eyes taking in everything around them. "You realize," Riker said as they climbed an emergency ladder, "that helping you probably just made me an enemy of whoever's hunting you." "Yes," Naira replied simply. "But it also made you something else." "Oh. And what's that?" "Hope." Riker snorted, but something in her tone made him pause. As they reached the relative safety of his hidden apartment, he found himself wondering exactly what he'd gotten himself into. "Welcome to your new home," he said, securing the door behind them. "Temporary home," he added quickly, seeing Naira's grateful smile. Soren stirred in his mother's arms, those cosmic eyes fixing on Riker with an intensity that made his cybernetics glitch momentarily. For the first time in years, Commander Riker Blackwood felt something stir in his chest, something he'd thought died in the fires of Centauri. Purpose. The first week of cohabitation tested Riker's patience in ways combat never had. His apartment, designed for a solitary existence, felt cramped with 3 occupants. Naira's bioluminescent patterns cast ever-shifting shadows on the walls, a constant reminder of how his life had changed. "Your cybernetics," Naira observed one evening as Riker cleaned his pulse pistol. "They're military prototype models. I've never seen anything so advanced." Riker's hand unconsciously touched the neural interface at his temple. "Part of an experimental program. Supposed to create better soldiers. Better killers." The bitterness in his voice surprised even him. "They made you more than that," Naira said softly, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light. "They made you a survivor." Before Riker could respond, Soren began to cry. The sound sent shivers down his spine, not because it was loud or disruptive, but because it seemed to resonate on a frequency that made his cybernetics buzz uncomfortably. Naira rushed to comfort her son, her markings pulsing with soothing patterns. As she held him, Riker noticed something strange. The child's own faint markings were starting to glow with increasing intensity. "That's not normal, is it?" he asked, his tactical systems automatically scanning for threats. "No," Naira admitted, worry creasing her brow. "His abilities are manifesting earlier than expected. We must be careful, they can track his energy signatures when they spike like this." "What exactly is he?" Riker moved to the window, checking the streets below. "And don't give me any more half-truths. If I'm risking my life, I need to know why." Naira was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on Soren's forehead that gradually calmed him. "He is the first of his kind, a perfect fusion of Lyrian and human genetics. His father was..." She paused, pain flashing across her features. "He was part of a secret research initiative. When they discovered what Soren could do, they wanted to weaponize him. His father died helping us escape." Riker's organic eye widened. "Human and Lyrian DNA? That's supposed to be impossible." "Many impossible things become possible in the name of war," Naira replied grimly. "The same drive that created your cybernetics created my son. But he was never meant to be a weapon. He was meant to be hope, proof that our species could not only coexist but combine into something greater." A sudden alert from Riker's security system interrupted them. Multiple figures were approaching the building, their heat signatures matching military-grade stealth suits. "They're here," Riker growled, already moving to the hidden weapons panel in the wall. "We need to move." "There's something else you should know," Naira said urgently as she gathered their meager belongings. "The ones hunting us, they're not just military. They're called the Purifiers. They believe in keeping bloodlines pure. The idea of a hybrid like Soren terrifies them." Riker pulled out a heavy rifle, his cybernetics interfacing with its targeting systems. Fanatics. Perfect. He tossed Naira a small shield generator. Stay behind me, keep that activated. We're heading for the roof. As they moved through the darkened corridors, Riker's enhanced senses picked up movement on multiple floors. They were being boxed in. His tactical systems calculated their odds of reaching the roof. The numbers weren't good. Naira, he whispered as they crouched in a maintenance alcove, can Soren's abilities do more than just glow? She hesitated. Yes, but using them puts him at risk. He's too young to control them properly. An explosion rocked the building, and Riker's decision was made for him. Whatever he can do, now would be the time. Naira looked at her son, who stared back with those unsettling cosmic eyes. Something passed between them, a silent communication Riker couldn't understand. Then Soren reached out one tiny hand, and the air itself seemed to ripple. The approaching purifiers suddenly stopped, their weapons falling from nerveless fingers as they clutched their heads. Riker didn't waste the opportunity. 3 precise shots dropped the nearest attackers, clearing their path to the stairs. As they ran, Riker noticed Soren's markings were glowing brighter than ever, pulsing in time with the child's rapid breathing. The boy was powerful, certainly, but Naira was right, he was too young for this kind of strain. They burst onto the roof just as another explosion shook the building. Riker's cybernetic eye highlighted multiple pursuit craft converging on their position. The situation was rapidly deteriorating. There. Naira pointed to a sleek vessel rising from between the buildings. That's our extraction. You had backup this whole time? Riker demanded, providing covering fire as more purifiers emerged onto the roof. Not backup, Naira replied, her free hand gripping his arm. Family. And now that includes you. Before Riker could process that statement, the vessel opened fire, forcing their pursuers to take cover. A hatch opened in its side, revealing a loading ramp. Jump! Naira shouted over the chaos. Riker looked at the gap between buildings, his cybernetics calculating trajectories and survival probabilities. The numbers were terrible, but as he looked at Naira and Soren, he realized something. For the first time since Centauri, he cared about something more than survival odds. They jumped together, Riker's enhanced reflexes allowing him to twist in mid-air, shielding Naira and Soren as they crashed onto the ramp. As the hatch closed behind them and the vessel accelerated away from New Haven, Riker found himself holding both of them, his cybernetic heart racing in sync with Naira's bioluminescent pulses. Welcome aboard the Star Weaver, a voice called from the cockpit. I'm Kira, Naira's sister. Thanks for keeping them safe, Commander Blackwood. Riker looked at Naira questioningly. She smiled, her markings glowing with what he was beginning to recognize as affection. Like I said, she murmured, family. The Starweaver drifted through the asteroid belt of the Carina system, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible against the cosmic backdrop. In the ship's small medical bay, Riker watched as Naira tended to Soren, her gentle hands moving in patterns that made her bioluminescent markings dance. His power is growing faster than expected, Kira said, joining them. Unlike her sister, Kira's markings were angular, military precise. The purifiers will be able to track his energy signature if we don't find a way to shield it. Riker's cybernetic eye whirred as it analyzed Soren's readings. The frequency is similar to quantum anomalies I've seen before. During the war, there were rumors of weapons that could. He is not a weapon, Naira interrupted sharply. Then, softer, I'm sorry. It's just, that's all they ever saw when they looked at him. Not a child, not a miracle. Just a weapon to be used. Soren stirred in his sleep, his small features contorting. The air around him began to shimmer, and Riker's cybernetics detected spatial distortions forming. Another nightmare, Naira whispered, placing her hand on her son's forehead. Her markings pulsed in a soothing rhythm, and gradually, the distortions faded. What exactly can he do? Riker asked, his tactical systems automatically cataloging the incident. Kira and Naira exchanged looks. Finally, Kira nodded. Show him. He needs to understand what we're really protecting. Naira gently woke Soren, speaking to him in the musical Lyrian language. The child's cosmic eyes fixed on Riker with that unsettling intensity he was beginning to get used to. Watch, Naira said. Soren reached out, his tiny fingers splayed. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Riker's cybernetic systems began reporting massive gravitational fluctuations. A small sphere of pure darkness formed above Soren's palm, and within it, Riker saw something impossible, stars being born. He can manipulate spacetime itself, Kira explained as Riker stared in amazement. Create pocket universes, alter gravitational fields, even glimpse possible futures. The purifiers believe such power should be destroyed. Others want to use it to reignite the war. And you? Riker asked Naira. What do you want? I want him to live, she replied simply. To grow up loved, not feared. To choose his own path. The moment was interrupted by blaring alarms. Kira rushed to the bridge, Riker close behind. The ship's sensors showed multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace. Purifiers? Riker asked, his combat systems activating. Worse, Kira growled. Mercenaries. They must have traced our jump signature. 3 heavily armed ships moved to surround them. The Starweaver's comms crackled to life with a familiar voice that made Riker's cybernetic heart skip a beat. Commander Blackwood, the voice purred. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize your handiwork in New Haven? Those precision shots, the tactical brilliance, it could only be you. Dominic, Riker spat. His former second-in-command, who had betrayed their unit during the Centauri incident. Still selling your services to the highest bidder. Still clinging to outdated notions of honor. Dominic countered. Hand over the child, and I might let you live. For old time's sake. Riker looked back at Naira, who stood protectively over Soren. In that moment, he saw not an alien refugee and her hybrid son, but his family. His to protect, his to fight for. Kira, he said, his cybernetics interfacing with the ship's systems. How good are your evasive maneuvers? A fierce grin spread across her face. The best in 3 systems. Good. Because I have a plan, and you're not going to like it. What followed was a desperate game of cat and mouse through the asteroid field. Riker's military-grade cybernetics allowed him to calculate trajectories with incredible precision, guiding Kira through gaps that seemed impossibly small. Meanwhile, Naira used her knowledge of Lyrian technology to boost their shields, her markings glowing with the effort. But it was Soren who turned the tide. As Dominic's ships closed in for the kill, the child's powers manifested again. Space itself seemed to bend around their pursuers, creating a localized gravity well that sent them spinning into each other's paths. Now! Riker shouted. Kira executed a maneuver that would have torn a lesser ship apart, slingshotting around a massive asteroid. As they emerged on the other side, Riker triggered the mining charges they'd dropped earlier. The explosion caught their pursuers in a cascade of rock and plasma. Think that's the last we'll see of them? Kira asked as they limped away from the asteroid field. Dominic's too stubborn to die that easily, Riker replied grimly. But we've bought ourselves some time. He found Naira in the medical bay again, singing softly to Soren. The child's cosmic eyes were heavy with exhaustion, his powers having taken a toll. Thank you, Naira said as Riker sat beside them. For everything. I should be thanking you, he replied, surprising himself with his honesty. I was dead inside after Centauri. Just going through the motions. You and Soren, you gave me something to live for again. Naira's markings pulsed with emotion as she took his hand. Their fingers intertwined, cybernetic and alien flesh finding common ground. We should reach the sanctuary moon in 2 days, Kira called from the doorway. Assuming we don't have any more unexpected guests. Riker nodded, but his tactical systems were already running scenarios, preparing for the battles to come. Because one thing was certain, this was far from over. The purifiers wouldn't stop hunting them, and now Dominic was in play. But as he looked at Naira and Soren, Riker felt something he hadn't experienced since before the Centauri incident: certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Family, after all, was worth fighting for. The sanctuary moon hung like a jewel against the vastness of space, its surface a maze of ancient ruins and dense forests. As the Star Weaver descended through the atmosphere, Riker's cybernetics detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the ground below. The ruins are Lyrian, Kira explained, guiding the ship toward a hidden landing zone. From before the war, when our people first explored this sector. The energy you're detecting is from old defense systems, they'll help mask Soren's power signature. Naira stood at the viewport, her markings pulsing with what Riker now recognized as a mixture of hope and anxiety. This was supposed to be our safe haven. A place where Soren could learn to control his abilities without fear. The ship settled into a natural cavern, concealed by thick vegetation. As they disembarked, Riker's combat systems highlighted multiple defensive positions and escape routes. Old habits died hard. The ruins themselves were breathtaking, crystal spires rising from the forest floor like frozen music. Soren's eyes widened at the sight, his own markings resonating with the ancient structures. The temples were built to harness natural quantum fluctuations, Naira said, leading them along a hidden path. Our ancestors believed they could communicate with other dimensions here. And now? Riker asked, helping her over a fallen column. Now we hope they can help us understand what Soren truly is. They made their way to a central chamber, its walls covered in shifting patterns that reminded Riker of Naira's bioluminescence. Kira began setting up security perimeters while Naira prepared for what she called the awakening ritual. Are you sure about this? Riker asked, watching as she arranged crystalline artifacts in a circle. He's still so young. We don't have a choice, Naira replied softly. His powers are growing too quickly. Without guidance, they could tear him apart. Before they could begin, Riker's cybernetics blared a warning. Multiple ships were entering the atmosphere, their energy signatures matching both purifier vessels and Dominic's mercenary fleet. They're working together, Kira snarled, checking her weapons. Dominic must have led them straight to us. No, Riker's organic eye narrowed as his tactical systems analyzed the data. They're not coordinating. They're racing each other here. The purifiers want to destroy Soren, but Dominic, he wants to capture him. To sell to the highest bidder. Naira clutched Soren closer. We need time to complete the ritual. Just a few minutes. Riker made his decision. Kira, guard them. I'll handle our uninvited guests. Alone? Kira challenged. That's suicide. Not alone, Riker smiled grimly. I've got about 30,000 credits worth of experimental military hardware wired into my nervous system. Plus, he touched the neural interface at his temple. I know these ruins' defense systems are still active. I can see their power signatures. The interfaces were never meant to link with Lyrian tech, Naira protested. The feedback could kill you. Riker took her hand, his cybernetic fingers intertwining with hers. Some things are worth the risk. The kiss was brief but intense, Naira's markings flaring with emotion. When they parted, Riker saw his own determination reflected in her silver eyes. Come back to us, she whispered. Count on it. Riker sprinted through the ruins, his cybernetics pushing his body to its limits. Reaching a central control spire, he placed his hand on a crystal panel. Pain lanced through his skull as his neural interface attempted to sync with the alien technology. Warning messages flooded his vision as his system struggled to interpret the quantum-based architecture. But beneath the pain, he felt something else, a connection to the very fabric of this place. Just in time. The first wave of purifiers was breaching the tree line, their white armor stark against the forest's darkness. Behind them, Dominic's mercenaries were setting up artillery positions. Riker grinned fiercely as he activated the ancient defenses. Crystal spires hummed to life, unleashing energy beams that cut through the purifier's ranks. Quantum distortion fields materialized, trapping entire squads in localized time dilation bubbles. But the strain was enormous. Blood trickled from Riker's organic eye as his cybernetics redlined. Warning alerts screamed about imminent system failure. In the distance, he heard Soren cry out. The sound was followed by a pulse of energy that made reality itself shudder. The ritual had begun. Dominic's voice crackled over an open channel. Still fighting other people's battles, Commander. Some things never change. And you're still a traitor, Riker spat, directing another crystal spire to target Dominic's position. Some things never change. I prefer to think of myself as an opportunist, Dominic replied. That child could change the balance of power in this sector. Imagine what someone would pay for that kind of weapon. He's not a weapon, Riker growled. He's a child. He's family. Dominic's laugh was cold. Family? Listen to yourself. Playing house with aliens while the galaxy burns. The great Commander Blackwood, reduced to babysitting a hybrid freak. Riker's response was to overload 3 defense spires at once, the resulting explosion taking out half of Dominic's heavy weapons. But the effort cost him. His cybernetics began shutting down, one system at a time. Through the pain and cascade failures, Riker became aware of another presence in the quantum network. Something vast and ancient, awakened by the ritual. And through it, he felt Soren's power unfurling like a newborn star. The child's consciousness brushed against his through the neural interface, carrying with it a vision of possible futures. In one, Riker saw himself, Naira, and Soren living peacefully on a distant world. In another, he saw only darkness and loss. The choice, he realized, was his to make. With the last of his strength, Riker initiated a full override of the ruins defense grid. His consciousness merged with the quantum network, becoming one with the ancient systems. As his organic body collapsed, his cybernetic systems poured everything they had into one final command. The crystal spires began to sing. The quantum song of the crystal spires reached across dimensions, bending reality itself to its harmonics. In the central chamber, Soren's eyes blazed with cosmic fire as the ritual reached its crescendo, his hybrid nature fully awakening. Naira watched in awe as her son's power merged with the ancient Lyrian technology, creating something entirely new. Beside her, Kira maintained a defensive position, though her attention was split between the entrance and the miraculous transformation taking place. Through their quantum connection, Naira felt Riker's consciousness fragmenting as his cybernetics failed. Hold on, she whispered, her markings pulsing with desperate intensity. Just hold on. Outside, the battle had taken an impossible turn. The Crystal Spire's song created rifts in spacetime, trapping both purifiers and mercenaries in pocket dimensions. Those who escaped found themselves facing automated defenses guided by what remained of Riker's tactical genius, now merged with the ruins' quantum network. Dominic's voice crackled through the chaos, "What have you done, Blackwood?" But Riker could no longer respond in words. His consciousness, stretched between his failing cybernetics and the ancient systems, was fading. Yet in that fading, he found clarity. Every battle he'd fought, every loss he'd endured, had led him to this moment, to this family he'd found among the stars. In the chamber, Soren's transformation reached its peak. The child rose into the air, suspended in a web of quantum energy. When he opened his eyes, they held not just the cosmos, but understanding. "Father," he spoke, his first word carrying the weight of worlds. Naira gasped as Soren extended his hand. Reality rippled, and suddenly Riker was there, his body reconstructed by forces that defied comprehension. His cybernetics gleamed with new life, now infused with Lyrian quantum technology. How? Riker managed, his systems adapting to their enhanced state. The future you chose, Soren replied, his voice carrying echoes of other possibilities. The one where we stay together. The reunion was cut short as Dominic burst into the chamber, his armor scarred but functional. This ends now, he snarled, raising a quantum disruptor. But he had forgotten about Kira. Her shot caught him in the weak point of his armor, sending him sprawling. Before he could recover, Riker was on him, cybernetic hand closing around his throat. "You're right," Riker said, his enhanced systems humming with power. "This does end now." Rather than kill his former friend, Riker interfaced with the ruins one last time. A quantum field enveloped Dominic, trapping him in a time-locked stasis, a prison of moments that would last until proper authorities could retrieve him. Outside, the remaining purifiers retreated, their faith shaken by powers they couldn't comprehend. The mercenaries, seeing their leader captured, quickly followed suit. In the aftermath, as the Crystal Spire's song faded to a gentle hum, Riker held Naira and Soren close. His new cybernetics resonated with their bioluminescent markings, creating patterns of light that spoke of connection and belonging. The quantum network, Kira observed, studying readings on her scanner. "It's changed. Stabilized somehow." Soren did more than just awaken his powers, Naira explained, watching her son explore his new abilities with wonder. "He created a bridge between human and Lyrian technology, just as he bridges our species." "A new path forward," Riker agreed, his enhanced perception seeing the quantum threads that now bound them all together. "For all of us." In the days that followed, word spread through both human and Lyrian space of what had occurred on the sanctuary moon. Some called it a miracle, others a revolution. But for Riker, Naira, and Soren, it was simply family. They remained at the ruins, transforming them into a sanctuary for others like Soren, children of both worlds who needed guidance and protection. Under the light of distant stars, a new community grew, one where differences were celebrated and old wounds could finally heal. One evening, as they watched twin suns set from the highest crystal spire, Naira turned to Riker. "Do you ever regret it? Leaving your old life behind?" Riker looked at his cybernetic hand, now traced with patterns that matched her markings. He thought of the lonely man in that bar, drowning in memories and regret, and smiled. "I didn't leave it behind," he said, pulling her close as Soren practiced making small stars dance in the twilight. "I found what it was missing." Above them, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if acknowledging a truth that spanned galaxies, that sometimes the greatest journeys lead us not to distant worlds, but to the people who become our home. Soren's laughter echoed through the quantum network, carrying with it the promise of a future where boundaries between species and technologies faded, where understanding replaced fear, and where love truly could transcend the stars themselves. It was more than a happy ending. It was a new beginning.